I'll go over some comments, then I'm going to turn it over to Andy from the Crime Stoppers, and then we'll go ahead and open up the questions, okay? So as you know, this morning we're going to talk a little bit about our homicide rates. As you know, here in Houston, our homicides are up significantly. They're up about 44% year-to-date as of this morning. And this is not a unique situation to Houston. It's sadly in this very unprecedented year that we're having as a nation with COVID, the economic downturn, and a lot of the other issues facing our nation. It is a phenomenon that we are discussing across the nation at the major city chiefs. As you all know, I'm the president of that organization. And just yesterday, we had a conference call with the Police Executive Research Forum because we're finding that it is not just impacting big cities, it's also impacting mid-sized cities and to an extent the entire nation. And it's something that we'll continue to explore, not just with our colleagues across the country, but obviously with our subject matter experts in academia and social scientists and others. So I asked the homicide major assaults commanders to update me on the rise in violent crime in the city, particularly the almost 45% increase in our homicide rate. The year-to-date numbers I'll share with you are unofficial, and obviously they're fluid, but they are what we know at the moment. Murders with a known crime element are up in two significant areas in 2020, and that includes, compared to 2019, that include two areas that I think we know is a challenge in most big cities, and that is gang crime and narcotics-related murders. We have had 16 more gang-related homicides and 25 more additional narcotics-related homicides year-to-date. And this is not a surprise. Like I said, we've been talking about these areas for a while. In 2019, documented gang members accounted for 25 of our homicide victims. In 2020, documented gang members have accounted so far for 57 of our homicide victims. 21% of homicides with an identified suspect are committed by a person known to the victim. This could be an acquaintance or a family member, and this equates to about 75 out of the 350 homicides. In about one-third of all homicides, 34%, the victim either argued with the suspect at the time of the homicide or the victim was involved in illegal activity. Some of the illegal activity involved robbery, selling and buying illegal narcotics, and fighting. And that's about 118 of 350. Numerous known homicide suspects were out on bond, parole, or on probation at the time of the murder. That includes about 20 known suspects out on bond at the time they committed murder. And that's what we have so far year to date. The couple of the more egregious examples we'll talk about in a little bit after I make my comments, after Andy speaks. Now, there's good news. Our family violence-related homicides are down 2020 by a total of 7 homicides, from 42 to 35. But here is a problem. That is really not, that's good news, but there's really bad news that accompanies this, because I think that's a matter of luck and not necessarily a matter of the criminal justice system working well. Our family violence Part 1 crimes are up 31%. 31% family violence crimes committed by firearms has increased 41%. So family violence are up 31%, family violence committed by firearms up 41%. And every one of those 41% increase that did not result in a death is a potential murder. And if we don't take those seriously, which we'll talk about later, it's a murder that was avoided, but it's a murder that eventually will happen if we don't take those kind of crimes, those attempted crimes, seriously. We currently have about a 31% of our cases of aggravated assault SBI, impeding breath and deadly weapon. That's, again, an increase in family violence, which is a big challenge. And reports of weapon charges, including unlawfully carry of a weapon and possession of firearms by a felon, is up 23% year to date. So that means we are catching these felons, these convicted felons, that are unlawfully carrying and possessing firearms. Those cases are up 23%. And we know that they're carrying those firearms. They're not carrying them for looks. They're carrying them to be able to victimize members of our community and other criminals. We've also seen in the news, covered by our media partners, there's been a 33% increase in road rage incidents in 2020, 6 of which involved a homicide, as compared to 2019, where there were only 4. The locations vary, but it's important as we talk about road rage incidents that the peak time frame is broad daylight from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., which is pretty much a commute time here in Houston. Lastly, this again, we're talking about firearms. Last year, year to date, we had approximately a little under 200 homicides involving firearms year to date last year. This year, we have approximately 300 homicides involving firearms. And the other piece involving firearms, I think, is one of the elephants in the room in our country is suicide by firearms. It's something that's being talked about across the country, that suicides have become a big challenge with this pandemic and the psychological and economic impact that it's having on our country. And so before I continue with my comments and then open up the questions, I want to invite Andy Kahn, our partners from Crime Stoppers Houston, to make some comments, and then we'll make some additional questions, and then I'll go into Spanish and take it to questions.
Just a quick clarification.
Yeah.